All right. Thank you. That was a pretty cool video, right? Yeah, we've been busy the last year or so. So appreciate Christopher for having us out here. Amazing story this morning, by the way. And so thank you so much. So the thing is, we all who likes the idea of passive income? Say aye. Yeah, okay. So who likes the thought of passive prospecting? I mean, even better. So this is something that we've developed over the last 2 years. So first of all, I always give a shout out and a thank you to my partner, Travis Plumb. He's been very instrumental in the business. I like to just say that I collected the clients, he converted them. So here's the deal, just to give you a little bit of the backstory, is that we were brand new agents, okay? Here's all my stats. Chris, amazing stats, 16 billion. Well, here's mine. 0 homes in 2020, by the way. Released the first YouTube video on December 5th of 2020. And in the Q1 of 2021, sold 0 homes. All right, how am I doing so far, right? Definitely a guy you want to learn from. So the thing is now, these slides are a little messed up, so just ignore that. That's all right, I think it's just the formatting, but it's all good. But here's what happened. So the deal is that released the first video, did not close a home in the Q1 of 2021. But what happened was it took about 90 days to get that first deal under contract. Then we closed the first 2 transactions from YouTube in April of 2021. And from there, it was a complete snowball. And as you can see there, over the next 9 months of our first year in real estate, we generated 690 leads from the channel. We closed 64 transactions. That's a 9.2% conversion rate, 33.5 million volume, over $1 million in GCI in our first year. But it gets even better than that, because in the first 7 months of this year, well, we ended up generating 1,006 leads from the channel. We did 153 transactions, 15.2% conversion, 87.7 million combined closed and pending, and 2.6 million in commissions in the first 7 months of this year, all organic with no ad spend, just from a YouTube channel. 0 branding, nobody knew who we were. So now it looks like, so that was probably about 50 million closed in the first 7 months. It looks like now with December coming up, we are going to close right at 100 million in our second year in the business. Not too bad, I would say. So here's the deal. I want to give you a little bit of the backstory. So I've got a friend, Michael Reese. I dug up this old picture. I found this, probably taken on a little disposable camera. This was actually 2003. And I've known Michael Reese, some of you may know him, since 2001. But the funny thing is that we sold gym memberships together at Bally Total Fitness. And what's funny is initially he sold me a membership way too expensive that I couldn't afford, put me on this 3-year contract with personal training whenever I was like 21 years old. And when I lost my job, I had to go back to him to try to cancel my membership, and he ended up recruiting me to sell memberships at the gym. So Michael's pretty much the same guy. If you know him today, that's what he does, right? He's really good at connecting people. But this was like 2003. And the funny thing is that I remember the weekend that Michael met Jay Kinder and came back from the lake and said, "I'm getting into real estate." I was like, okay, well, good luck. I never had any desire to get into real estate. And so the thing is that I understood, like 87% of the agents fell in the first 2 years. I wasn't really necessarily in an entrepreneurial mindset at that time. I was just having a good time getting a job. I had just gotten out of the military. I was still in the reserves at this time. So what happened is Michael got his license about 2002, and it took him about 2 years, but he finally talked me into coming into real estate around 2004. So I actually did get licensed in 2004, but the thing is I'll come back to that here in a second. And the thing is, before I made the transition into getting into real estate, I wanted to really try to understand, why do agents fail? Why do they not make it in the business? Well, there's some unique stats that goes along with this. And the average agent starts with less than $5,000 to their name. So that's usually going to pay their bills for the next month or two, which leads them to cold calling and door knocking and talking to friends and family, because they don't have money to spend on marketing. Even on NAR, if you look on NAR's website, it says if you're an agent with less than 2 years of experience, on average, you will make $8,800 a year. Now, I don't know about you, but I could not live off of that, which is another reason why people get out of the business. But it's also a rejection-based business. I don't care what anybody says, nobody likes to get rejected. And whenever you get told too many no's, or you start out because you have no money and you have to cold call and door knock, that comes with a lot of rejection, and so people can't handle that and they get out of the business. But I used to think it was not really being effective at lead generation, and that's whenever I get into passive prospecting. But I wanted to do something a little different with y'all today, and really kind of share with you the backstory about what happened. And the thing is that what I learned is that it's not the fact that agents are not effective at lead generation, or why are they not effective at lead generations, because they don't have the right mind to do that. And so I want to share with you, have you ever charted out your life on a graph, by the way? Well, I would assume that your life probably looks a lot like my life. It's full of ups and downs, right? But it's really the decisions that we make that are either going to move us forward and get us out of our current situation, or it's the indecision that's probably going to dig us in a deeper hole, and we're not going to be able to get out of that. So I'm going to kind of cover some of these because there's been 3 major setbacks. And the thing is that people tend to look at right now, as we're coming up on almost 4 million in commissions in the first 2 years of the business, and say, okay, well, that's what I want to do. And how do I get that? They don't understand the backstory, right? They just see what's on the surface right now. They don't understand that this does take work. Yes, we did that through YouTube. But if you look at our channel, you will see the amount of work and the amount of consistency that we've had to put in to get here in the first place. But it goes back a lot further. So I'm going to start with the first mental setback. The thing is that going back to Michael, he finally talked me into getting licensed in 2004. So if you look on Trek, you'll see that that's whenever I actually got my license. But I was still in the reserves at that time. And what happened was I got licensed. I had it for about a week or so, and then I got the call. And the call said, hey, by the way, you got 4 days, you're getting deployed to Iraq. Go home, pack your stuff, say your goodbyes. And that was it. Literally, that's what was happening in 2003, 2004 to anybody that was in the reserves. And so that was it. I had to say my goodbyes, literally 4-day turnaround to pack my stuff, report to Fort Hood. And, I was gone for the next 18 months. And the thing is that you want to talk about being in the right mindset. Somehow, I don't know, I was in my early 20s, and something just told me, I need to get my mindset right before this happens, because I was scared. I was scared. You think about deploying to a combat zone, it's not an ideal situation. Looking at top left, if you go left to right, we're there, that top left picture, we're in a C-130. That's basically an aluminum can without any windows, all right? And look, we're just packed in there. It's really a cargo plane. That's why all the seats are on the sides. There's no windows, and when you fly into Baghdad, you fly in a what they call a corkscrew pattern, which is basically, you think landings are tough right now when you land on a plane? Try flying in a tin can with no windows whenever you're just neck to neck with everybody, and you have to fly in a corkscrew pattern, and you do that so you avoid any type of small arms fire, missile attacks, or anything else that might shoot you out of the sky as you land. So that's your first, the first thing you've got to deal with whenever you're landing in the middle of a combat zone. So we land there, and you get out and you're thinking, this is what we did. We did patrols, combat patrols, quick reaction force, rode around in the back of the trucks. In 2004, 2005, this was before, we understood, the military understood about roadside bombs and things like that, and so we were out there without any armor, just exposed, riding around. You talk about being in a constant, state of anxiety. You have to have your mind right. That third picture is in a sandstorm. That was a 3-day sandstorm in Baghdad. That's what it was like. This was before filters, by the way. I think that's the first recorded selfie as well, back in 2005. I took that like on a disposable Fuji camera or something. That's all we had. And so that was no filter. That's what it looked like. You're sitting there digging dust out of your ears and everywhere else for days. It's not a fun experience. Working with the Iraqi army, you never know. They're armed people that you heard the stories of them turning on people. So you're sitting there training people that may just turn around and take you out. It's not a fun situation. And the thing is that, here's the deal. We lost people. We lost some of our team members while we were there. We actually lost more to suicide when we came home. But the thing is that, in Iraq, you don't get days off. You don't get time to mourn. You don't get time to feel sorry for yourself. You have to complete the mission. You have to move forward. That's why so many soldiers have trouble when they come home, because it's the first time that they actually stop and have to sit there and think about stuff. So when you're there, you just have to keep moving. And so for me, fortunately, I was able to work through that mostly. The thing was, I came home from Iraq with the digestive disease. And this thing messed with me on and off for about 8 years. So now I go into a physical setback, because for 8 years, I was dealing with this digestive disease. And then all of a sudden in 2013, I ended up losing 50 pounds in a single month. And I became bedridden and disabled, and this absolutely nearly killed me. I saw 4 different GI doctors, and they all threw the kitchen sink at me with medication, steroids, IV antibiotics, hospital stays. They were gonna put me on Remicade. and which is a low dose chemo. That was, and they said if that doesn't work, let's cut out your colon. And so that was their solution for me. That was when I'm 33 years old. That's what the doctors were telling me. You're going to have this autoimmune disease for the rest of your life. You're going to either be on medication or we're going to cut out your colon, and that's it. That was their solution for me. And again, fighting through that, we never gave up, always looking for solutions. And it was by God's grace that I found a natural doctor, and the natural doctor is like, well, hey, let's just change your diet and put you on some vitamins. I was like, wait, what? I've been dying a slow death for 3 months and they're telling me there's no cure, nothing at all. And the natural doctor's like, yeah, we'll just change your diet and put you on some vitamins. And I was like, okay, I'll try anything at this point, because removing my colon at 33 years old did not sound like a good option. And so that's what happened. I changed my diet, put me on some vitamins, and within about 3 weeks, I started to get better. And I started to get better and better, and I was able to gain my appetite back and actually start to eat food again and hold something in. And from there, it took me a full year to recover, but I was able to do that 100% natural with no medication, no surgery, still have all of my organs today. And the thing is that was 10 years ago. It's been 10 years. I'm 43 now. I think I look probably better at 43 than I did at 33, right? So, you can overcome situations, but you have to look for the solutions. You have to keep fighting. You have to keep moving forward. And so from there, what happened was I realized when you nearly die, this is the second time I nearly died. You talk about living a year in Iraq, making through there. Well, still, after that happened, I realized I'd never been anywhere. I grew up in Stephenville, Texas. It's a small town north of here. Actually, I usually say south of Dallas, but it's north of Houston, Stephenville, Texas. If you're not milking cows or riding bulls, really not much else to do there. Nobody ever leaves that hometown. I did the same thing for about a year, working, stocking shelves and mopping floors until I realized, okay, that wasn't going to work for me. And that's why I joined the military, because I needed a way to get out and I didn't have any money. So that was it. But then, after I got sick, I was very, very strategic on my diet for the next 5 years, because I heard that cancer patients, if they're in remission for 5 years, they considered them cured. So I thought, well, if I can be in remission for at least 5 years, I would consider myself cured. And so I just focused on my diet, focused on my health. But at the same time, I realized I've never been anywhere, hardly even outside of Texas. I got to go see the world. There's so much to do. And so I took off. Now at this time in recovery, the thing was whenever I got sick, I had a pharmaceutical job. And they let me go on medical leave for 90 days. And then, I wasn't physically able to come back after 90 days. So I ended up losing that job. And that's whenever I realized I'm not going to have a job anymore. So I started a financial services business in recovery. I ended up getting contracts with Dallas ISD, and I was working with all the teachers on their retirement planning. So that became very lucrative, because I had a teacher's schedule, but I had 5 times the teacher's income. So this was now the best time of my life, where I'm making really good money, and I had summers off. I had 2 weeks off for Christmas, a week off for Thanksgiving, and every 4-day weekend you can think of, I had off. It was awesome, right? And so then I was like, well, I'm going out and traveling the world. I hit 24 countries inside of 3 years. That's fishing in Belize, hiking mountains in Costa Rica, going into Germany, touring 600-year-old cathedrals in Italy, swimming in the Mediterranean Sea. It's like having wine under the Eiffel Tower, visiting bodegas in Barcelona, the old town in Belgium and Brussels, and riding World War II vehicles, motorcycles through Amsterdam. One time I took off for 12 weeks during the summertime, spent 5 weeks in Costa Rica, did 7 weeks in Europe. And so that was a great time. And so that's what led up to, I actually wrote a book on this too. So this was my first COVID project, by the way. So whenever everything closed down, I was like, wrote that. So, but the thing was that, then it came to this major financial setback, because what happened was I was riding high for the last 5 years. I had recovered fully, in my opinion. I considered myself cured, by the way. I've never been on a single medication. I haven't even taken an Advil in the last 10 years. I just live a different lifestyle. And so on April 1st, the thing was that 2019 was my best financial year ever. 2020, the first quarter, I was outpacing 2019 by 40%. Actually, in 2019, that's where I met Trisha Turner. I spoke at this Key West mastermind on financial services with Kinder Reese at their mastermind. Again, maintained my relationship with Michael Reese for over the last 20 years, still trying to get me into real estate. He was trying to get me in real estate in 2019, which is why he invited me to speak there. And the thing was, I was still not interested in being a real estate agent. I was comfortable. I was traveling the world. I had time off. My business was running full speed ahead. And then April 1st happened. And I got a phone call, and it was the partner that I had been working with over the last 5 years on this financial services business. And what happened was not only did the school shut down at that time, right? The whole world shut down, if you can remember. Everything shut down. And then basically the day after that, I get a phone call from my partner. What I didn't know at the time was that he had a pretty good little tiny upper hand on me in our original contract. And what I didn't know is he went behind my back, got my license terminated with the financial institutions, not the state. You could go to the state and look up my license. Never had a single issue, no problems, no complaints, no compliance issues. I did everything by the book. I acquired on average 100 clients a year. Over the last 5 years, I had acquired 500 clients. I was building up this nice residual income because you get paid off of people's accounts as you grow them, right? So think about that, getting paid residual income off of 500 people's accounts. And then he says, by the way, I terminated your license. I'm assigning all your commissions to me. That's it. You're done. I'm taking everything. Was the phone call, and I was, wait, what? What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. This was someone who I considered one of my best friends who I'd been working with over the last 5 years. They called me their little brother, and I was going, wow, how can you do that? And he gave me these BS reasons, and it didn't make sense. So I thought, all right, I'm going to take him to court. And so I took him to court over the summer of 2020 over Zoom, because guess what? Everything was closed down. Well, what I learned through that process, which that cost me about $20,000. So I just plopped out $20,000 after having my entire income taken from me. But luckily, I've always been a good manager of my money, a good steward, and so I had some money to mess with. And so I said, all right, pay the lawyer 20 grand, because anytime you talk to a lawyer, they just want money up front, right? So 20 grand. Well, what I also learned is that because if you ever go after a business, you have to go after that business in the city where it's located. Well, they're located in this small podunk town, which is a lot smaller than Stephenville, out here in East Texas. And so guess what? Where they know everybody, they know the judge, they know the sheriff, and that's pretty much it that goes on in that town. So then you're also talking about the old country boys that don't know how to use Zoom either. So this was one of the worst experiences. Go to court over Zoom, cost me $20,000, and all I wanted to do was to make them testify on the record, because I was thinking, this is baffling to me. How could you do that? How could you steal everything? And I had so much that was working in my favor, so much documentation. There was 0 cents for this. Well, we got on there, and the judge just was like, well, I read the contract. It looks like he has every right to do that, so that's it. Drop the case. And that's it. That was it. 20 grand over in like 10 minutes on Zoom. And I sat there and I what happened? And the lawyer said, well, if you really, really, really want to sue him, then we're going to need a $100,000 retainer. And if you lose that, you're going to probably have to pay their $100,000 in expenses as well. And I just thought, this absolutely crushed me. And this was the first time ever since Iraq, I'd worked through a lot of stuff going through Iraq, that I started to feel a lot of anxiety. I'm not an anxious person. I never was before. I had to deal with some stuff when I got home, but I felt like I was able to get through that. But this was the first time that I really started to feel anxious again. And I was like waking up in the middle of the night, like heart racing and everything. And I just thought, this is crazy. But what I realized was, I was like, you know what? I have to move forward. I have to move forward. I'm going to make more money going forward than what he stole from me and what they're going to do. If I go back and I chase this, it's going to suck the life out of me for the next 6, 8, 12 months. Who knows how long it could take. And I'm going to stunt my own growth. I said, I don't care what happens. I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to figure out a way to get out of this. And guess what? Here comes Michael Reese coming back. Hey, it's time to get into real estate. And I'm like, I don't want to be a real estate agent. Still, I did not want to be a real estate agent. And so here's what I did. What's funny is that was April 1st. What I'm showing you is my actual bank statements. On April 2nd, maybe you can't see this, but on April 2nd, I was going to invest in a new business on the side. Oh, that's off a little bit. So again, formatting's a little off, but that's a $40,000 wire. So I processed that on April 1st in the morning, like 9 a.m. And he called me at 3 p.m. to tell me he was stealing everything from me. And I just wired $40,000 out of my account to invest in this Amazon store. All right. And so I've been following these guys online, got caught up in one of those Facebook ads that happens. And, and then they were offering this done for you Amazon store. All you got to do is you invest the money. We'll build everything out. And I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. Sounds like a side gig. I could do that because I didn't have time or want to start anything else, but I had money. So I wired out $40,000. Actually, the first couple of months, it started to go kind of good. So what did I do? I invested in a second one. I wired out $25,000, $13,500. Then I invested $17,500, look at that, into a mastermind. And then look at that bottom one. It was going I thought it was going well for the first 3 months on those, that I talked my parents into investing into one. And I said, they're 65 years old, about to retire, and I thought this might be a good diversity for them. And I said, why don't you give up $65,000 as well? I'll manage it, I'll handle it. So I got my parents to wire in $65,000. Now imagine that. So here's what happened. Over August of 2020, I invested $161,000 in Amazon stores, cash. That was wires. That wasn't on a credit card. That wasn't a loan. That wasn't money I borrowed. That was straight cash from my account. I spent $17,000 on that mentorship. I spent another $20,000 on courses. I bought a wholesaling course. I bought a network marketing course. I bought some other course about how to turn your Facebook into a lead generating platform. Basically, I was going all in not to become a real estate agent. Seriously, because you know why? Because I was scared to death. I was scared to death of being a real estate agent. I was looking at Michael and Jay, and I saw how successful they were. And I was 41 years old, and I was thinking, I do not want to start from the bottom again. And I don't want to start from the bottom in their industry where they're the kings, and they've been in the game for 15 to 20 years, and I'm just going to walk in there, and guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to make maybe $100,000 my first year, maybe. No, I can't do that. I can't go back. I've already experienced life and success and ups and downs, and whatever I did, I was like, I can't let this happen. And so I went all in. Now you got to ask yourself, who in here is willing to go all in on yourself? And that's what I was doing. I put all the chips on the table, $200,000 of my own cash to do that. Anybody have that pesky pastor, the pesky pastor that you don't want to tell stuff to because, as soon as you tell them, they're going to start text messaging you all the scriptures and everything, to try to cheer you up. And you're like, I don't want to be cheered up with scripture, all right? I want to be mad for a little bit. So finally in September, the thing is what's funny is at the end of August, so for 5 months, I spent $200,000 trying to not be a real estate agent. And I realized after I did that, when I started running low on money, okay, I've got to do something else. So then I thought, I guess I'm going to be a real estate agent. So how am I going to do that? So then I started to research and really look at if I'm going to do this, how can I attract business? How can I bring people to me? Is there a way to actually do that? And what's funny is I finally told my pastor what had happened around that September timeframe, and he sent me this text message. He said, "Enemy is a thief, pay back 7 times. People do not despise a thief when they steal to satisfy themselves, but when he is found, he must repay 7 times what he stole from you." Well, in that first quarter of 2020, I made $100,000 in that first quarter. So I was on pace to having a record year for myself, but I thought, man, 7 times 100,000, 700,000, okay. I hadn't made that much money before. I mean, is that possible? Okay, again, it's one of those scriptures, it doesn't really matter. All right, just gonna put that in the back pocket and move on. And so over September and October, what's funny and what's ironic is as I spent all my money and researching and trying to figure out what I could do to not be a real estate agent, then I stumbled upon YouTube and started to dig into YouTube and realized, hey, I think there's a gap in the market. I think there's a way for me to get in and get found on a search engine versus a social media platform and actually attract business to me because there's not a lot of agents really doing this at all whatsoever. And so what's funny is that once I started that September and October, I started researching and I hyper-focused on YouTube for the next 60 days. And then November, I started filming. Well, I released that first video on December 5th of 2020. Now, you're not gonna read all this. I just wanted to show you the volume. But what I had to do was tell my partner and them, I sent them this email, and this is actually about 1/5 of the email. I sent them a 5-page email on December 21st of 2020. And I just had to get everything off my chest, okay? I just had to get it out there, and I had to tactfully and respectfully, even though I wanted to cuss them out on email, I respectfully told them how terrible they were, basically, and how they stole everything and how they were wrong and how could you do that? And I had to just get that out there, and so I let that go. And now what you're seeing right here is this is a 1099 from TWC. That's unemployment for 2021, because I released the first video on December 5th of 2020. I just dropped $200,000 of my own cash, and by January, I was making videos, but I had no clue if YouTube was gonna work. And the thing was that they kept talking about unemployment, and this was the first time. They've never had unemployment for 1099 people, right? I'd owned my own business for the last 5 years. But then the first time they approved unemployment for 1099 workers, and I thought, man, I'm running low here. I'm at my last dollar. And so I actually applied and got approved. Now, I only took about $7,600. You can see the pay stub from the beginning of 2021, but that was just enough to get me through February and March, whenever we got the first 2 deals under contract in March of 2021, and closed those first 2 transactions. And when we closed those first 2 transactions, the reason that's so low is because I immediately cut off the unemployment. And it was just enough. Those 2 transactions in April of 2021 were just enough for me to get back on track and to get the bills paid again and to start focus. And from there, you saw what happened in the last 9 months. We ended up doing $1 million in commissions in the last 9 months of the year. And now this year, we're gonna finish, thank you, at right around $3 million in commissions. And you're going from unemployment to $4 million in commissions inside of 2 years. And you know what's funny is this was supposed to transition, but then it made me realize, you know, August of 2021, we went to Build, and everybody got COVID there. If anybody went to Build 2021, like everybody that was at Build got COVID. And it was the first time Travis and I were going so fast and so hard for those first 7-8 months that we didn't stop. We weren't slowing down, and then we got COVID. Like, it hit me hard. I ended up getting COVID 3 times, by the way, but the first time took me out. Like, for 3 days, I was like, you know, crying. Couldn't taste my Chipotle. It felt all like chalk, eating chalk. I was like, this is terrible. You know, and so I was sitting there. This is the first time we stopped, and I had to take like 2 days off because of COVID. And what I had realized, it literally woke me up in the middle of the night one time. And I woke up and I remembered what my pastor had texted me, you know, that enemy is a thief and you'll be repaid 7 times. And what I realized was at that moment in August of 2021, we had just hit 700,000 in GCI from the channel. You can't make this stuff up. This is crazy. And I love how I document everything. So there's the proof. It was crazy, and that's what it happened. And so, and this is one little section that I saw some of you trying to read that email, that big long email I wrote. I wrote this one section, and it said this. I said, when I tell my story, I will now reference the fact that my best friend, my brother, and my sister stole all of my income in one phone call. It was the setback before I became the biggest success. I will be speaking on stages, and I will talk about my low points, how I overcame combat in Iraq, a terrible digestive disease that nearly killed me, and my best friends that stole 5 years of my life. However, all those setbacks have led me to the man I am today. That was God testing me to see if I was ready for the biggest success of my life to come. And in this last year, it's been a wild ride. You saw the intro clip. We've worked with the best. We've worked with Pete Vargas. I've spoken with Ryan Serhant, met Gary Vaynerchuk, Sean Cannell, Benji Travis, Ryan Serhant, Giselle, Tom Ferry. We're making the rounds. You know, Sean Cannell and Benji Travis, I always tell people to get this book. This was supposed to transition, but I'll reveal it anyways. You know, they released the second edition of YouTube Secrets just a couple of months ago. They included our story in that book. And the reason they did that is because every YouTuber gets recognized once they hit 1 million followers or they've been in the game for 5 years. But what they wanted to prove was that we were able to hit $1 million in commissions when we only had 1,000 subscribers on the channel. So prove that if you've got a high ticket item offline that you can sell, you passively prosper, you know, through YouTube. And now seeing on that second, that is our book that will be coming out in February, and it's legit. I'm telling you, this is a real deal right there. And yes, you're reading that correctly on the bottom. Y'all are the first ones we're telling as well. Ryan Serhant wrote the foreword for our book. And that all happened because of intention. You know, we spoke at Build earlier this year in front of 6,000 agents. That all happened a year before. Everything that we've done has been very strategic and intentional, but it's because I made the decision to not just get into real estate and try to figure it out. I decided, let me see if I can figure out a plan, and then I'll get into real estate, because I was so scared of failing that I just stopped and paused for a moment and said, hold on, let me take a look real quick. Let me figure out a plan first. So it's funny, this place is, or this venue is called, right, The Secrets to Success. Oh, here's the other irony. I just got this email November 21st, 2022. By the way, the FTC, Nation's Consumer Protection Agency, sued us that we broke the law. Basically, those Amazon stores I invested in over the last 2 years, I've lost probably another $50,000 in inventory and everything else I've invested in. But now the FTC sued that company, they settled. So now all that money is absolutely gone. I got zero return out of that. But the fact is I don't even care, because investing in those stores forced me to figure out a different way and forced me to move forward and to find something else and to find actually what I was supposed to be doing in life and why I'm here today. And so it took 22 years for me to be an overnight success. A lot of people see what we've done in the last 2 years, but it's been the lead up of the last 20. It's been the triumphs, the setbacks, everything that's boiled over to this point. And wherever you're at in your life right now, it comes down to, let me share with you the not so secret formula to success. This is what it comes down to. You need to decide, you need to take action, and you need to repeat every single day. Thank you.